Yeah, I don't really have a plan. It's just not unusual. So maybe it makes sense to start, like, I don't know if anybody even knows what CPC is. It stands for the Cross Project Council. It's kind of the top committee in the OpenJS Foundation. We do a lot of work there that sort of spans across the foundation and across the projects. And yeah, what more can I say there? You know, we're working on like infrastructure and security and you know, code of conduct practices. And it was the Cross Project Council was born out of the Bootstrap Committee, which was the group that merged the two foundations. For folks that don't know, the OpenJS Foundation is the merger of the JS Foundation and the Node.js Foundation. And so we just kind of continued the work from there. We meet every other week, and we kind of switch the times to try and help with time zone stuffs. And then on the off weeks, we do working sessions, which we started doing, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something. We were meeting every week, which for a long time we needed to meet every week. We were doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of an intro. As with most things at the OpenJS Foundation, if you're interested in getting more involved, you can go to openjsf.org/collaborate, and there's links to the Slack, to the GitHub, and you know, YouTube, and all the places where we are. For folks that don't know, we took a lot of the ethos from the Node.js Foundation, where we try to do as much as possible in the open. And so all meetings have meeting issues with the agenda in there that's automatically generated from a machine underneath Michael Dawson's desk. Sometimes he's got to kick it to but yeah, it's all open. The meetings are open. The meetings are streamed. You can kind of lurk if you want to see what we're working on. And so normally these collaborator summits are sort of, some of the sessions are a little smaller and we kind of talk about things, but so we can try to do that here if you want. You know, I was curious what folks thought was working well and what we could be doing better, and any ideas on, you know, how to get more folks involved. There are a few initiatives that we're working on right now that are really exciting, like the Sovereign Tech Fund that we secured recently. We are getting a grant of over $900,000 to work on security in the JavaScript ecosystem. So that's super exciting, and we'll probably talk about that in maybe a half hour or so, a little bit more in detail. But I don't know, I can open up the floor if anybody has any thoughts or questions or things that they think we should be doing differently or whatnot. Darcy?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does the CPC or even OpenJS have like a mission statement? Do we have like a general, like, what are we trying to accomplish? Is it to bring on board more projects into the foundation and support them? Is it to make building or writing JavaScript more sustainable or maintainable long term? Like, do we have a set mission statement? I know there's like a lot of governance and articles in regards to how we operate as a foundation, but maybe it's like, what are we trying to accomplish? Like, what can we all galvanize around?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I know we wrote one because I think that was one of the first things we did when we were working on the merger. And I have to assume it's on the foundation website somewhere.
But do we know it?
That being said, because I haven't looked at it in a long time. My thinking is, and my impression of the work that we do is really to support the JavaScript ecosystem overall. And so, sure, we are happy to have projects join the foundation if that, you know, makes sense. And we do have some guidelines for when a project does make sense to join the foundation. But overall, the work that we do is really geared towards the ecosystem overall. You know, we certainly use our projects as sort of launching points and whatnot, but even the Sovereign Tech Fund, you know, the stuff that we're trying to do there, we're thinking about the entire ecosystem. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think I don't think the goal is necessarily to bring in more projects like as the goal, the mission. Certainly more member companies is great and something we work on. Yeah.
More money. Totally a fine goal.
Yeah. It's not the mission though. I think the mission is really just to help support and help the JavaScript ecosystem thrive and grow and mature and be secure and all those kinds of things. Would you agree, Robin? Okay. Yeah, healthy is a great word. Jory, I think I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say because that's typical for me. One thing that struck me today was that seed that was planted for the CPC to become what it is today, for the OpenJS Foundation to become what it is today, was planted here. In 2017, 2018 at what was then the Node Collaborator Summit. And I think one key factor for our vision for what the new thing would be that we're able to really gather feedback and input and understand the needs of not just the Node.js community or the jQuery community or the Dojo community, but like across all of the projects. What are the problems that they're facing, and how can we as a collection of open source maintainers use our combined power to solve them for everybody? And I think that's where the Sovereign Tech Fund infrastructure investment is really going to come into a big play. That we've had a lot of emphasis on security thanks to folks like Darcy and others. And so I think one of the questions that I would ask us to consider for you all in this room is like, what are those problems that you're having, and how can this group of people come together to solve them, and how can we do that with the CPC?
Yeah, number one, we were talking about this earlier. It's really kind of, I don't know if exciting is the right word, but to be in this space again when we were working on the merger, and Jory and I and a few other folks a bunch of other folks were out in the hallways with sticky notes and talking about, how we were going to merge and what was important and what we're going to, how these two organizations, even though they seem similar, were actually quite different, how we were going to bring them together. Hey, Matteo. But I think if I can take your comment further, like I wonder what would be a good way for folks to surface things. What are some good channels that could be open for comments or needs or does anybody have any thought?
Obviously, security is one that we're paying extra special attention to right now. But, are there other problems or policy questions or like areas of support that we need to be paying more attention to? Like, the rise of like Copilot and other kind of tooling. We don't have guidance yet for projects on how to use those safely. Should we do something? Is that a problem yet for people? If not, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, those are the things that I want to know what's on everybody's mind.
Yeah. And we can open it up. Darcy, looked like you were holding your hand again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I'm not sure if the projects today, like, started off asking about the mission statement. We're talking about a healthy, like, the foundation projects are healthy and, secure. Like, are we using, like, chaos metrics at all? Can we be reporting every 6 months we get together? Can we be reporting on sort of metrics about how the state of those projects are doing or the ecosystem at large is doing? And again, I think to Jory's point as well, like, are we keeping track? Like, what are the things that we keep track of, the data points that we have today that we are like, hey, we're actually doing a good job, we're being successful. Keeping ourselves accountable, obviously, is like really important. I know, like, even inspired by Wes's work with the Express Status Board, right? Like, was a good first step at trying to, like, surface data so that we can actually be like, hey, did we make an impact here? But also there's brand new areas that we have to like consider, like obviously AI and licensing. That's like, I'm not a lawyer, but that scares me, that whole, yeah. So.
Wes?
Yeah, I was thinking actually one thing that the foundation probably is uniquely positioned to do and maybe do better, because I don't know if this is all happening right now, is connecting the member companies with the projects, like doing some outreach to like, the projects are looking for support. I'm not, speaking on company behalf, but I'm involved in a bunch of the conversations. We're a member, but we're looking for ways to connect with the maintainers more directly, right? So we can do that on a one-off basis, but I think the foundation actually sits in that like nexus point where, especially when we're talking about the cross-project council, like I feel like there's probably some want, and I know there is from our side, to connect with the maintainers of the pieces that we really care about, right? And I think the foundation probably could do that better than any other group. So I think that would be something that I would like to see, a little bit more focus on, and specifically the foundation doing that outreach, not like, I'm here. I think Alex is coming here later. Alex is on the board. I'm sure that helps, but I imagine a lot of other people maybe who aren't quite as involved in the foundation are probably would love to see, a nice email that says, hey, here's some project leaders who are looking to connect with some of the users at the big companies. Maybe there's some funding situation they're looking for. Maybe there's just, I'd like to come and give a talk at company X about the project and see how you're using it. Like stuff like that, I think would be again, something specific that the foundation could do that, the projects can't really do as well on their own, I think.
One thing I'll add to that is that like the currency of that conversation is like stories and impact and things like that, right? So we kind of have to, when Robin or myself or when we go talk to member companies, they want to know, well, what's the case study? What's the story that we can kind of tell? Because for them, if it's something like, oh, we're giving free credits or something like that to support this open source project, then from a marketing standpoint, they don't necessarily get a lot by just giving us those free credits. We have to like tell them some kind of story. And that is something that at the LF level, they're investing a lot more, and there's somebody who's actually going to go out and try and like source those. But I think we could, and Kylie and Robin and I could use, and Ben could use your help kind of figuring out what are those like powerful stories, what are those needs, because if we can connect people and then tell a story about it, then they're like, okay, money, or credits or whatever.
We have one also new work stream out of the OpenSSF grant for Node.js, and that's essentially advocacy. And so Raphael, as part of his job now, is to go and find member companies and give presentations or at third-party events, just to share all of the security best practices from Node into those developer communities.
Yeah, and one thing that comes to mind for me too, and I recognize most of the folks in here, but we can always use more help too. So if you have ideas, I know we're all busy, right? But if there's something that does spark an interest for you and you want to help make that happen, please, because a lot of the work that we're doing, yes, we have folks who are part of the foundation who are paid to do some of these things, but a lot of it is community driven. So anybody wants to, spearhead any of these initiatives or these ideas, please come talk to us, join the Slack and whatnot.
One of the things that I find a little bit, like, especially putting on the project leader type of situation, when I am at, every time there is essentially somebody, a member company that happened also in the past, okay, and I don't want to name anybody, but there was, I've been chatting to member companies that's also on the Linux Foundation side and so on. And to some extent, there was this feeling of, or some expectation of transactionality by member companies. And to be honest, I don't know exactly how to it seemed more of we project needs to do something for you member because you're funding the foundation. Now, this is typically not the case. Most of the time it's not the case, but there was this feeling. It was more of a feeling than an obligation or anything. But and more often though, what we need as projects is, but what can you do for us? Like not vice versa, okay? So this is the moment you start to improve this kind of communication is to be clear that, what can you member can do more to support more the projects and not like setting up the expectations correctly, okay, from a project perspective and from a member perspective, because it might be that there is some misalignment, some misalignment on the expectations, and it would be bad.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, I've seen that a little bit, but yeah, that's an interesting thought. I think it makes sense that you'd want to maybe come to that conversation with that thought in mind, that it is kind of, you help me, I help you. I think along the lines of what Jory was even saying, like if there's a story or some way that there could be some marketing or something, it's a shame when you go talk to them and they're just like, what are you going to do for me? But I think if you can make it mutually beneficial, that probably, yeah. But, maybe there is more expectations to be kind of set and managed. I'd like to talk to you more about that offline, maybe. Yeah, it's interesting. Michael?
I would add that, I think the projects are happy to support or amplify when companies do help. So, if they come in and, we have people who donate hardware for the Node CI, we want to know how we can help them take advantage of that. I guess it's more if they come in and say, well, hey, I joined the foundation, now what are you going to do for me? Yeah. We're like, well, you haven't done anything directly, Whereas it's very clear if you said, here's some hardware for your project, then oh yeah, and here's a story. We've done this. We're happy to say, let's write a story on how we use that hardware, how that helps. So maybe what it is, not how you can help me for what I've already given you. It's hey, let's get together and hey, how can you help the project? Oh yeah, and then how can we help you for helping us would be a better way to go.
Yeah, and it probably makes sense to bring the foundation into some of those conversations, because they do typically have a marketing hat on or ways to sort of take advantage of these relationships. So I think that makes sense.
Okay. One last thing before we wrap up here. We're 3 minutes mark. Can you give some examples of initiatives, projects that the CPC has been recently working on that can kind of illustrate the type of work that CPC has been doing?
The security work, I think, is really interesting. And we haven't, before securing the Sovereign Tech Fund, we were sort of doing it without promoting it too much, just sort of getting the ball rolling. But that is very much rolling now, and that's really exciting. And we'll actually talk about that some more after the next hour is the Node.js security update, as well as OpenJS security collab space. What other things have we been working on? I know, Jory, you said there was a whole list of things.
So I think there's a lot of things that we do that just don't necessarily get a lot of the visibility because, for one, shameless plug, the standards working group has been really busy on a number of different things, and there's a lot of things we'd like to continue to do, like to do more of, and so your help and engagement in that working group would be much appreciated. There's additional programs that we have set forth, like the JavaScript Landia project, and that's something that I think would be a great place for newcomers to come get involved in that community and kind of growing that to its next stage. There's the just general upkeep and maintenance of things that change and evolve, like our, travel fund documentation and things like that, which when, a small group of really active people drive it, that's great, but it also kind of starts to fall apart as other priorities stack. So we could, really use a lot of help, I think, across a lot of vectors.
My brain kind of stops when I'm up here, but I'm glad you mentioned standards. But also, the travel fund was converted to the community fund, and we have all sorts of ideas that we want to do with the money that we have every year, which we usually don't use up. So if you want to help us spend money, that would be a good way to get involved. So anyway, we meet every other Tuesday. It's on the calendar, calendar.openjsf.org. Not to be confused, the Node.js one is /calendar. The foundation is calendar dot. But we'll call it a wrap on that.
Yeah. I
Okay,
guess.
great. Thanks.